कोई नाम न जाने मेरा। दसां पातशाहियां दी आत्म जोत, कलयुग के बोहित नाम के जहाज, अलग पलट की रक्षा करने वाले। ਧੰਨ 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 ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ, ਆਪ ਦੀ ਅਪਾਰ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਦਾ ਸਦਕਾ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਸਾਈਬਰ ਸੰਗਤ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਜੁੜ ਬੈਠੀ ਹੈ। ਆਪ ਨੇ ਅਪਾਰ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ, ਅੱਗੋਂ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੁਰਮਤਿ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਸਮਰੱਥਾ ਬਖਸ਼ਣਾ, ਆਪਣਾ ਨਾਮ ਆਪ ਜਪਾਉਣਾ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ, ਆਪ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਰਸਨਾਂ ਤੇ ਬੈਠ ਕੇ ਆਪ ਉਚਾਰਨ ਕਰਵਾਉਣਾ, ਗੁਰਮਤਿ ਸੇਧ ਅਨੁਸਾਰ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਆਗਿਆ ਬਖਸ਼ੋ ਜੀ। ਸਹੀ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਮੇਲੋ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਚਿੱਤਿਆ ਆਵੇ, ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਨਾਮ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ, ਤੇਰੇ ਭਾਣੇ ਸਰਬਤ ਕਾ ਭਲਾ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ,
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। Vaisakhi ji Khalsa, Vaisakhi Fateh again. Welcome once again to another session of Khoj Gurbani. This is Rubinder Singh joining you from Columbus, and I will be attempting to moderate the session as I've done in the past. But before we begin, we have a couple of new members. I know Uncle Ranbir Singh is on, so just for the clarity on how we do this discussion, essentially what happens is we read out the passage under consideration. In this case, it would be a Pauri of the Japji Sahib, because that is the Bani we are considering right now. And having read through it orally once, I usually try and call out to anybody at random and sort of start the discussion with them. And once the first participant is able to sort of outline his or her perspective on what was read, we just begin to open up the discussion by reaching out to individuals who are participating. And the idea here is that we are trying to stay as brief as possible. We only have an hour and we have several participants, so we try to stay brief, and we also kind of try and sort of wait for follow-up questions to come through. In any event, so far we've been fairly successful, I think, in keeping the cadence of this discussion going. So that's how we really conduct the dialogue, and that's what we're going to do. But before we start, I do have a question for the participants. Last week, we were virtually done with 47, to my mind. I know that we were not able to get to the last line or so, and we left the question open. So what I want to hear from the participants is, should we move on to the 8th Pauri, or do you want to dwell on the last line or two? Because I believe we had a fairly good discussion on the 7th Pauri already. So I'm just going to try and hear from someone to say yay or nay. Arvinder Singh, should we carry on to the 8th, you think?
I think we haven't finished the last two lines, and
Okay.
the last two lines carry the good message in 47.
Okay.
So let's take the first few minutes and go over the last two lines in the panel, and
Okay.
then if there are no follow-up questions, then we move to 48.
Okay, very good. Then does somebody want to volunteer to read the last two lines, starting with Nanak, Nirgun Gun Kare? Any volunteers? No? All right, I'll read out the lines then. And the last two lines, let me read the whole Pauri again, and then we'll dwell on the last two lines. Je jug chare arja, hor dasuni hoy, nama khanda vich janiye, naal chale sab koi, changa naam rakhai ke, jas kirat jagle, je tis nazar na aave, ਤਾਂ ਬਾਤ ਨਾ ਪੁੱਛੈ ਕਿ ਕੀਟਾ ਅੰਦਰ ਕੀਟ ਕਰ ਦੋਸੀ ਦੋਸ ਧਰੇ ਨਾਨਕ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਗੁਣ ਕਰੇ ਗੁਣਵੰਤਿਆਂ ਗੁਣ ਦੇ ਇਹਾ ਕੋਈ ਨ ਸੁਝਈ ਜੇ ਤਿਸ ਗੁਣ ਕੋਇ ਕਰੇ. So the last two lines are ਨਾਨਕ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਗੁਣ ਕਰੇ ਗੁਣਵੰਤਿਆਂ ਗੁਣ ਦੇ ਇਹਾ ਕੋਈ ਨ ਸੁਝਈ ਜੇ ਤਿਸ ਗੁਣ ਕੋਇ ਕਰੇ. Do we have a volunteer who wants to start on this, or should I reach out to someone? Let me reach out to Sardar Ranveer Singh ji since he's joined us today. Uncle, tusi karoge, will you sort of very quickly wrap this up for us?
Actually, I think this is my first day. I would rather listen.
Achha. Nahi, listen to nahi, tonu sawal to asi karne ne. So, I'll give you a pass on the last two lines since we had a conversation around this. So, Charan Singh Veer ji, do you want to wrap this up?
See, from my perspective, Nanak nirgun gun kare, gunvantya gun de, teha koi na suje, jetis gun kare, koi kare. For me, nirgun is very important to understand. Like we have nirpao, nirvair, we have nirgun as a anti of gun. So it's only the Akal Purakh who manifests as Naam, as Gun, as the only Gun, and he only blesses us with that. That's my simple take on it. Nanak nirgun gun kare, gunvantya gun de, teha, and like him there is no other who manifests as Naam. It is him who it's Akal Purakh who, it's Vaheguru Ji who is the Naam, and there's no other parallel to that. That's all my simple take. Thanks.
Thank you. Ekankar Kaur ji, what's your perspective on this?
It's not too very different, honestly. It's, for me, these lines are that, they're that nirgun and gun, that there are in life people who have virtues and people who are not so virtuous, but they're both created by the divine, and whatever virtues they carry are whatever virtues anyone has, whether they have a lot or a little, they're considered virtuous or not virtuous. It's something that's given to us. It's not something that we have within ourselves. And there's other places in Japji where Guru Nanak kind of reinforces this idea that if I have any virtues, it's because you've created me to have them. It's kind of a space of humility, and then turns it around at the end and says, and none of us can, there's no human being that can bestow virtues on the Creator. So the experience of virtue is something that's given to us as a gift, and it's not like we've got the power to make the Creator virtuous. The Creator exists in its own sovereignty, basically.
Okay, thanks. Dilpreet Singh ji, would you like to add to that?
Yes. See, the way I see this Pauri is, when I read the first two lines, it tells us that if you gain lot of age and all those other prevailing things which were there by other means people were practicing to increase their age, and also Guru Nanak is again giving his perspective that none of that is going to count. What is going to count is the guns which you have. And again in our Mool Mantar we have discussed that what guns a person can attain, and now the way I interpret these lines is that nobody else can give us the guns, so we have to work and get those guns. And when it says Nanak nirgun gun kare, that we should never worry about that I don't have much guns or I am bad, I cannot attain them. It tells us that everybody has a potential to attain the guns, and even if you think you are good, you can even be better. So we should never stop. And then it is also telling that we should not go anywhere and ask for some blessing or anything. We need to work hard to get those guns, and the only way we can get it by working hard, because that is the message I am getting, that we need to put effort into it. Nobody else can give it to us.
Okay. Bani Kaur, are you there? Do you want to add to this?
तो मैं रणबीर सिंह बोल रहा जी, माफ करना मैं 2-3 बारी कट ऑफ हो गया.
Yeah, sorry, I got cut off for like a few seconds, but I'll continue to listen and pitch in.
So is that Bani Kaur speaking?
Yes.
Okay. Did you catch my question to you?
I think she will be mute for some time. She's driving right now.
Okay, very good. All right, very well.
Ravinder Singh ji, we also have Gurdeep Singh ji joined from Amritsar and Jaswant Singh ji from Singapore.
Acha ji. Vaisakhi Khalsa, Vaisakhi Fateh ji. So Gurdeep Singh Veer ji, let me go to you just as a quick checkpoint for you. We are considering the last two lines of the seventh pauri, which start with Nanak Nirgun Gun Kare Gunvantiya Gun De. And we have actually reached out to a few of the participants, and the basic message that is coming back is that Guru Nanak here is referring to Akal Purkh as the storehouse of all virtues or qualities, as they're being referred to, and that whether we are deemed virtuous or not virtuous, it really is a matter of how we were created or how we were invested with these qualities. So I'm going to reach out to you and see what perspective or what your take is on this.
Ji, I have just joined. I'll participate in the next round.
Okay,
Please,
ji. Okay, ji. Okay. So just one thing, Viji, you're out in Singapore. You heard me mention this to Gurdeep Singh Viji. Would you like to add, or do you have a perspective or take on the last two lines of the seventh pauri, because we want to wrap it up?
Yep. So I think the last two lines are also in connection with the whole stanza. We cannot separate them, differently. So when you look at the whole theme of the stanza, it is about a person who attains a lot of, you can say, worldly achievements, worldly recognition, reputation, but ultimately he forgets that he has achieved all this through the grace of the Creator. Of course, Creator dwells in his creation. So everything we have, we gain is through creation, through this world, through people. In that sense, that's how the grace of the Creator works. So a person who forgets that, so that is a kind of, being ungrateful, we can say. So the last lines are, in a form of solution to that, that still, if such a person realizes that this is all his achievements and all his, reputation that he has is achieved through the grace, through the world, through the creation. So this is where Nanak Nirgun Gun Kare Gunvantiya Gun De, and this refers to Vaheguru, that of course it's he, that when he showers his grace, even such a person can, realize his weakness, and this is where Nirgun refers to the person, the ungrateful person here, the which is literally having, not that virtue of being grateful. So it's Vaheguru who even in such a Nirgun can create virtue of being thankful to God. And even Vaheguru is the one who Gunavantiya Gunde. So Gunavantiya is in opposite to Nirgun. Even the virtuous one, they also receive virtues from Vaheguru. And lastly, the Teha Koe na Sujai, Je Tis Gun Koe Kare, Teha refers to Vaheguru. That there is none other than Vaheguru who can bless virtues even to an ungrateful person or even to the virtuous people.
So how do you read Teha Koena Suji? Suji, some sort of discernment or understanding.
Sujai is
ਕਿਸੇ ਗੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਝਣਾ
ਨਹੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਤੇਹਾ ਕੋਏ ਨਾ ਸੁਝਈ, ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ, ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਕੋਈ ਸੁਝਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਦਰ ਦਨ ਦੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ,
ਕੋਈ ਜਾਪਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ
ਜੇ ਇਸ ਗੁਣ ਕੋਏ ਕਰੇ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਗੁਣ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੋਵੇ, ਤੇਹਾ ਕੋਏ ਨਾ ਸੁਝਈ।
ਠੀਕ ਹੈ, thank you for that perspective. Let me ask the question again. Do we want to delve deeper into the last two lines, or do we think that we can pretty much sum up the seventh pauri and move on to the eighth pauri, which was the intention to begin with?
Ravinder Singh ji, can I ask you a question?
Hanji.
I think before we move on. Hanji.
कौन बोल रहे जी? Hanji, I'm sorry.
बोल रहे जी.
Hanji.
I have a small question. ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਨਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ, ਅਨਾਣੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਿਹਾਰੀ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਨਾਉਨ ਐਕਟਿਵ ਵਾਇਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਮਤਲਬ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਕਰਦਾ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਕਰਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਦਾ, ਇਹ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਅਪਲਾਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ। ਇਹ ਤੇ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ
Uncle, you're cutting off. Uncle, we lost you for a little bit.
I'm sorry, मेरी प्रॉब्लम है कि लफ्ज निर्गुण
We lost you for a little while.
I'll start over again.
हाँ जी.
लफ्ज निर्गुण च अनाने दे नाल सिहारी है. I think that's a very significant thing.
हाँ जी.
अर्थ करने वेले कि जे अनाने दे नाल सिहारी है कि जे निर्गुण उस जीव ਨੂੰ ਅਪਲਾਈ ਕਰਦਾ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਪੌੜੀ ਚ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਤੇ निर्गुण ਨੂੰ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ निर्गुण ਨੇ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਤੇ ਜੇ निर्गुण परमात्मा ਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾਵੇ ਤੇ परमात्मा ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ निर्गुण ਸਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਅਰਥ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਣਨਗੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਲੀਅਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੱਜਣ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਸਿਆਣੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਮੈਂ ਅੱਜ ਬਹੁਤ ਮੇਰੀ ਬੜੇ ਭਾਗ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਸੱਚਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਕੀਤੇ ਆ ਇਸ ਫੋਰਮ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਹੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਿਆਰੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਥੋੜੀ ਕੰਫਿਊਜ਼ ਕਰ ਗਈ
Anji, does anyone want to take that on? Uncle, we are trying to keep this discussion in English because there are people who are not that grounded in Punjabi.
I'll do that.
And so, does anyone want to take on the challenge of the appearance of the Sihari before the Nana in Nirgun?
Hanji, Ravinder Singh, if you can.
Hanji.
Yep. So, I mean, the question asked by Paji Ranveer Singh is very beautiful. But it's very simple. Nirgun is, of course, refers to the person there, unworthy or virtueless person. And Sihari, and Sihari is in a case, the apan ji grammatically gal kariye, this is in locative form. So in that sense, it is Nirgun which, that it is Vaheguru who can even create virtues in an unworthy kind of person, or in English it can be the one who can bestow virtues on to the person. So Punjabi ਵਿੱਚ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਦੀ ਸਿਹਾਰੀ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਗੁਣ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ.
So he can invest the ungrateful and the undeserving as well. With gun.
Yeah, we can say so.
He can invest them with qualities.
Yes.
And of course, the following line then is gunavantya gunde, meaning he gives those as well.
Yeah, gunavantya nu mi. Yeah, Punjabi ji ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ to the virtuous also in that sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Uncle, does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yep.
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਵਿੱਚ
ਰਵਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੰਘ
ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਗੁਣ ਪੈਦਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ.
Got it. Ikokarji, do you want to say something before we carry on?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Harvinder Singh, you were trying to say something?
Hanji, I was just, I think before we move forward, if someone can just summarize in 2 minutes, like what are the attributes of Nirgun and what are the attributes of Gunvant person?
Gurdeep Singh Virji, do you want to give it a shot, or just one Singh Virji, somebody?
Okay, to me, if we look at this body, so in this body, Nirgun is, I mean, we need to look at the whole body's theme. Key point is here ungratefulness. ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਯਾਦ ਰੱਖੋ ਤੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਅਕਿਰਤ ਕਣ. ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਅਕਿਰਤ ਕਣ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ. So in that sense, in this stanza, the Nirgun refers to that being ungrateful, being thankless, receiving everything from Vaheguru, from his creation, but at the end of the day, forgetting that. And virtuous, jada gunavantya hai, virtuous is again a very generic term, the one, at least in this stanza, who has this virtue of being always grateful, always in remembrance of Vaheguru. But I mean, otherwise, the virtuous means the one who has all those good qualities we can think of.
Thank you, Ji. Harvinder Singh Ji, does that make sense? That the word Nirgun here is really referring to somebody who is without any gun, meaning, and then specifically the word that was used, a kirtagan, which in English, I suppose, is an ungrateful person. We refer to people as being ungrateful wretches.
Hanji, bilkul perfect. Thank you, Ji.
Virji, I have a follow-up question.
Hanji Dilpreet Singh Ji, sure.
See, what is where I am struggling is that we keep talking about Vaheguru's grace and it is prevailing, and if that is grace is prevailing, then do I need to do something to get that grace, or it is prevailing on every nirgun person like me, but still I am not changing? So where is my own effort coming into the play? Because if we this, I don't see this as a Guru Nanak's marg that I can just sit there and hope for something to happen.
Okay. So I think, Dilpreet, if I'm not mistaken, let me rephrase what you have asked. I think what you're saying is, in view of how we've interpreted the last two lines, it seems to you that what we are suggesting here is that even those who are ungrateful and undeserving can be endowed with qualities by Akal Purakh Vaheguru. And the ones who do have qualities and virtues are also receiving from the same source. So I think what you're trying to ask is, so what's the difference? Why should I even try to make an effort? Because after all, Akal Purakh Vaheguru will invest me with virtues anyhow. Is that what you're trying to say?
Right, that is where I was going, that what is my role in that to get it, or everybody will get it, or I don't know what I need to do to get it.
Okay, that is a that's an interesting question. And Uncle Ranveer Singh ji, would you want to sort of comment on that?
I hope I can, क्योंकि बड़ा difficult question है. एक contradiction लग रही है कि एक पासे ते गुरु साहब कहने कि सारा कुछ predetermined है, दूसरे पासे कहने उद्यम करो. लफ्ज उद्यम जेड़ा है ना गुरु साहब ने बख्शिश कीती है, उद्यम करना साडे लिए जरूरी है. अच्छा, वो क्वेश्चन ही आ जाता है कि does an individual have free will? Actually, that's I think what the question is.
That is really the crux: free will versus determinism.
Yeah. Actually, what happens is, my answer to that would be, in my own experience, we do lots of things in this life, and we think we're doing it of free will. But actually, that's not free will, that's predetermined. So, where is the borderline? In fact, that way I have to go back to the Hindu beliefs that in life, we beings have to act, have to do something. And what we do, we think we are doing voluntarily, but it's really we are programmed to do that. And so on one hand, we say, Guru Sahib gets us to do whatever he wants to do. He's the Karn Kravanhara. And if that is so, can we just sit back and let him get us to do whatever he wants to? No. Because on the other side, he inspires us to do things. He is doing that. So say, I want to do my, say, PhD in something. Why am I doing that? Because I am being inspired by a divine command to go that way. And then I think I am doing the Uddham. But this Uddham is also being regulated and dictated by the divine authority. And I think we have to sort of, when Guru Sahib says, Pana Manna and all that, that all thing comes in it. Because then once you surrender yourself to God, then you think you're doing voluntary action, that's by free will, but that free will itself is programmed by the divine authority. That's my belief.
Thank you, Uncle. This is indeed a very a fundamental and it's a fundamental issue in all philosophy. I mean, whether we have free will or whether it's all a deterministic universe.
And incidentally, I might make another comment.
Hanji.
I had asked a question about Nirgun, that's Syari, and I was just checking on Guru Granth Sahib, and Guru Sahib has used the word Nirgun with the Syari for the feminine gender. So when you say Jeevistri, it's been used in that sense as a feminine, and so it could be a noun, a feminine noun. When it said Nirgun Gunkare, that means a Nirgun Jeevistri. And
which would
so
pertain to us, right? Because we're all Jeevistris in one sense.
that's right.
Right.
So the use of shari with a feminine gender would be the correct grammatically.
Thank you, Ji.
So,
Hanji, Ravinder Singh ji.
Hanji.
I mean, I would like to comment on Mirji's. I mean, what he said is somewhat all right, that sometimes Nirgun with Sehari can be used for the feminine gender, but here it cannot be. Because very clear, this refers to Teha. And Teha here is in a masculine gender, in a masculine sense. But of course, I mean, the meaning always is there whenever we are talking of masculine or feminine. It is for all, every one of us. So ਜੇ ਸਿਆਰੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਇੱਥੇ ਫੈਮਿਨਿਨ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਫੈਮਿਨਿਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੇਹਾ ਤਿਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਮੈਸਕੂਲਿਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ they refer to that person of course and that person as a ungrateful one. So ਉਹ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਿੱਧਾ ਹੀ ਹੈ ਵੀ ਉਸ ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਬੰਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਰ ਉਹ ਬੰਦਾ ਫੈਮਿਨਿਨ ਤੇ ਮੈਸਕੂਲਿਨ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੋਵੇਂ ਹੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਹੋਗਾ.
Thank you, Ji. And my sense is that both answers can be we can live with both of them together. Because at bottom they are referring to an ungrateful human, whether it is male or female. I think we get the message, and I would steer away from any further sort of discussion on grammar. It can get very involved, but I think we get the gist. I want to jump back to free will versus determinism, which is a perennial issue. So Dilpreet Singh Ji, what I would warn you and caution you against is that there may be no certain answer. But we will speculate a little bit on that. So let me give everyone a chance here, and I'll reserve my own chance at the end because I think I have a little bit to say on this.
Yeah, let me say in agreement with Sardar Sahib. I am reading here from Guru Granth Sahib, and it says Sakat Nirgunyarya, and it's the same. Sakat is used as a male when he says Nirgunyarya, not Nirgunyari. And there is a shari with the Udana.
Okay, very good. Ekukar Kaurji, do you want to comment on this question that Dilpreet Singh raised about free will determinism? I mean, am I supposed to do something? Is there an effort? Does it matter? Because yes. Guru Nanak here seems to be suggesting, hey, you can just sit back and relax.
Yes, yes, G. I'm grateful to talk about that. I have a little bit different perspective. When I look at certain lines in Japji, Amrit Vela Sachana Variyayi Vichaar, for instance, when I look at the lines Ape Bija Pehi Kal, when I look at the line Jini Nam Tiaya Gama Sakatagal, they're all lines that are invoking action on our part. That we need to rise in the Amrit Vela and meditate. We have to do the hard work of meditation, and we've got to be aware that we reap what we sow. So, to me,
but the reverse is true as well.
Well, and this is the interesting thing, because in Japji, Ape Bij Ape Hi Kal Nanaka Hukami, he talks about Hukam right next to those lines, and so for me, free will is part of Hukam, and it is that I think it's about a 20-80 split. That we've got about 20% free will in the context of we're here to learn and we're here to grow, and our capacity to choose and make effort is part of the system, is part of Hukam, but we're never in charge of what our choices manifest. That it's like if I rob a bank, it's not in my hands whether I get away with it or not. So, there's always, the universe is moving in its own way, but I do have this area where I can choose, and so where I can choose, that's why Guru Nanak is teaching us, choose to have this kind of consciousness, choose to do these kinds of actions, and the outcome is not in your hands, but this is the path I'm giving you so that the universe can move and your higher consciousness can evolve. So for me, free will is part of the system, but it's a small part, and there's a huge part of it that's not in our control, but we've got to take responsibility for the part that we can and should cultivate in terms of our own choices.
Okay, so just curious, how did you come to the 20-80 split?
How did I come to the 20-80 split, honestly?
Yeah.
I heard Yogi Bhajan say it, and I thought it sounded good.
Okay, all right. So I thought maybe you had some, you were privy to some secret numbers that we didn't know about.
No. It because someone asked him this question, and
very good.
It just kind of resonated with me, so I adopted that.
Fair enough. That's a good enough number.
Yeah.
All right. Gurdeep Singh ji out in Amritsar.
हाँ जी वीर जी, मैं थोड़ा सा इससे कहना चाहता कि जो फ्री विल पार्ट है,
थोड़ा अंग्रेजी क्या दो?
The free will part is for the action and for the expectation or the result. For that part, we have to bear hukum. This is in short I want to say.
So you're also suggesting a split here.
Split in the sense that an action along with an expectation that if I will do something, I will get something, and that expectation should end. That expectation should not be there in mind. Any action which we are doing that is just for praying and just a request in that sense.
Okay. Thank you, Ji. Charan Singh Veer ji, Toronto.
My take on this issue is that I have a free will to be a guru word or keep making my own effort and my own chalking my own destiny or doing my own actions. So the free will exists at this level for me. If I have decided to be guru word, everything is taken care of. That's a complete surrender. And just to be on the lighter side, it's 99-1 split. If I just take one step and move toward the Guru takes care of everything. Udam karo karave ape. Sutyan de utha le. Koi lord nahi sutte uthan di. Guru takes care of it, but that 1% is very profound in its making because it's a very sensitive threshold. One keeps on moving towards the 99 part. It doesn't take that one free will decision that I have to go Guru word. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Bani Gaurji, I know I don't want to leave you out of this very interesting discussion. Do you have any perspective?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I actually kind of agree with Ignan Gaurji. I mean, I don't think the only part I guess I would defer a little bit based on what she said is that I really don't think the free will or I should say, I really don't think the outcome really matters. Like Guru Nanak Dev Ji, I don't think ever said sit back and relax. I think he said you continue to find yourself, find the creator inside you, and leave the grace part. When it will come, it will come. But that's not for us to worry about when it will come, why it will come, where it will come. You keep doing your part, and if the grace does come, it will shine within you.
Okay, thank you. Have I missed anybody? Dilpreet Singh ji, does that move this thought in your mind any further?
I think it is still there. I think we will, as we discuss more along these lines, it will become more clear. I think down the line again it may come. Because this free will and what we have to do, I always get hung on this because it says Dithe Mukat na hove jichar shabad na kare vichar, and the emphasis is given to this discussion which we are doing. At the same time, what I need to take from this discussion, do I need to implement something in my life or not? Because every time I get stuck on these, that if we are discussing something and if I am not implementing, then just discussing and learning will get us anywhere or not, because what is the end game or what I need to take from these discussions and how it will change me, or just I need to sit back and relax and wait for the grace will change me, or I need to do something. That is where I am getting stuck.
Okay. So I don't think that we can solve the issue tonight. You've heard some perspectives from some very learned people with a lot of insight. And I suspect, Dilpreet, that you'll be wrestling with this issue for quite some time to come. Hanji.
May I have 2 minutes?
Kaun bol rahe ji?
Dr. Jaswant.
Hanji.
Okay, I think this is a very interesting topic that we are looking at, and probably in the 20th Pauri when we are going to look at Punni Papi Akhan Nahe, and we can have further discussions on this. Okay, but I would like to also share something. Number one is that when we look at this free will and my own will, so in that sense we are still looking at Vaheguru and we ourselves to be two. But we have to look into the Gurbani, that Gurbani tells us that it's not two, it's one. If you look at that creator and creation, you and Vaheguru are not two, it's one. In that sense, this free will and your own will again, are not two, they are totally in a sense one. Number one. Number two, to understand it, that how actually it works, because we find in Bani it is also it's all hukam, and it's also that Gurbani said apan hathi apana ape hi kaswari. To look at that, I think I would like to take on from the Ekonkar's madam's point further at 2080. So I would like to suggest that if you look into the scientific research that we have nowadays, it says, and it uses the word genetic code. So there it refers to that we can understand it, that how really it works. That in one, it is not 20/80, it is basically 65/70 and 30/35. That's the split there. In that sense, genetic code of everyone is around 65/70 is determined. It's very hard to change that. But the rest of 30-35%, we can work on that. And that can be changed. And they say even you don't need to change that 30-35 whole. Even if you work on just 10% on it, you can change, in a sense, entirely your perceptive, your attitude, and your outcomes of life and everything there. So I think in that sense, it is like there is a part which is determined in a form of genes and so on, but the motivational part, inspirational part, guidance of Sat Sangat and Gurbani is there, which is going to help us to work on this 30-35%. And this is where we can have a lot of impact on our life, everyday life. We can change to a certain extent, but again, not in that sense, sometimes there are few things that you can't really change. That's all.
Thank you, Z. Okay, does anybody else want to say something about this? I'm sorry. One thing that struck me, and I think that I would be interested in that answer as well, and I think it's worth considering, is Dilpreet used the expression end game. Is there an end game? Is there a destination? Am I going somewhere? And I think we need to have some clarity around that. I mean, for all I know, there may be no end game. And that may be part of the problem, that we think there is an end game and that we are oriented towards an end game, and therefore we think there are certain things we have to do in a certain way to get me to some imagined end game. I don't know, but I'm throwing this out there for your consideration. Anyone want to take that bait?
I can take that.
Hanji, please.
I am quoting a pankti which just comes to my mind about the destination. There is the destination, the difference between the destination is, Bani says, Pram ki jali, taki kati, jako sad sangat biswasa. When one comes to know the presence of the Guru through the Naam that dwells along, then that param, 99% of that param in which everything dwells, is taken away. So yes, destination is the removal of the param between me and the creator, I being the creation. ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹਉਮੈ ਦੀ ਵੇਲ ਪਈ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, once that is taken away, now I cannot remove it, period. Tons of efforts, tons of everything I can do, it's just Guru Kirpa. And once one goes and surrenders to the Guru, tan man tan, ਜਦੋਂ ਸੌਂਪ ਦਿੰਦਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ, then Guru takes care of everything. That's my perspective.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I was, of course, referring to a physical destination, not necessarily an expansion of consciousness or a deepening of consciousness that you're alluding to. But thank you for the perspective. Does anyone else want to comment on this fact? I mean, because it seems to me what we are suggesting is that we have to act. And Dilpreet, I would suggest to you, try doing nothing. I guarantee you that you cannot sit still, no matter what. You may not know what it is you want to do, but I think that there is something that will impel you to do something. I think of that we are all aware, right? I mean, you will be doing something. You cannot sit still. So I think the way we are manufactured or created, we cannot sit still. And I think I want to pick up a little on some of the thoughts that were expressed here. It is not what you do, but how you do it and the attitude with which you do it. And a lot of us have spoken to the fact that just do the action and leave the outcome because you have no control over that. And I just want to leave you with one thought. I would recommend a book called The Illusion of Conscious Will. And it's written by a scientist here at Indiana University who's done a lot of research in this subject. And he deals with how the process of the self gets created. Too technical for me, but nonetheless, something very interesting that he says. What he says is that when you think you are making a decision, as Uncle Sandhu referred to, he says you think you're making the decision. Actually, the decision has already been made for you much before you at your rational level even begin to realize it. And then what your rational mind is doing is simply arranging it. But anyway, that's a reference that you might be interested in looking at. Does anyone have any further comment on this before we move on to the next party? Now I'm looking at the time and I'm wondering whether we should continue this discussion here or move on to the next party. But anyway, does anyone have any further comments on this subject that we are talking about?
I'm Ranveer Singh. I have a little comment.
Anji.
I'll just quote Guru Granth Sahib about Uddham. And I think it has been more or less agreed that Paramatma, gets us to do things. And Guru Sahib says, Uddham soi kraye prabh, mil sadhu gun gaon. At another place it says, Uddham karo, kravo thakur. So we pray to God to get me to do the right Uddham. Now, in his own meher, Guru and God have already decided something for me, but there is a desire in me to do the right thing so that Guru and God would be pleased with me. And like in that very Shabad, Guru Sahib says, Uddham soi kraye prabh mir sadhu gun gaon, duji jai na sujhi, kithe kukun jao. Agyan binasan, tam haran, uche agam mao. So what we are praying for is Agyan binasan. And like Sacharan Singh very properly and nicely explained, that we have to remove that little veil between Atma and Paramatma. And we talk about Home, and this is the consciousness of our individual being that Paramatma has given us. But then we have to realize, like Guru Sahib says, Man to Jot Swarup hai, apna mool pashan. And once we get to understand that, we understand our mood, that we are part of the infinite. And we realize our oneness with Paramatma, then of course our Uddham is fulfilled. And the Agyan, that's where the Agyan goes away and Home goes away. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Uncle Ji. It certainly does. And I just want to amplify that a little bit. I also would refer back to something that Dr. Jaswant Singh from Singapore said when the whole point of this awakening, if you will, or realization that you are indeed one, not two, is really the end game, it seems to me. It's an awakening. It's not obviously a physical destination. But once that realization dawns on an individual, then I think the way you begin to look at the world dramatically and radically changes. What seemed very ordinary begins to appear extraordinary to you. Once you begin to get that realization, then whatever you do is done without any sense of ownership, which in Punjabi is karta pao. You don't do it with the sense of ownership. You then realize that you're in the service of something much larger than yourself. I think that's the realization that dawns on an individual. And once that happens, Dilpreet, I think what happens is you become inspired. Chao paida hunda fir man ch, to work in the service of this. That's really my sort of 2 cents on this. Again, I'm coming back to the panel. Any more thoughts on this?
Ravinder Singh ji?
Hanji.
Hanji. I think
I'm sorry, I forgot you in the process.
No, I think I agree to all what is said so far. But ਹਾਂਜੀ ਬਾਕੀ ਨਾ ਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਮੇਬੀ ਆਈ ਐਮ ਯੂਜ਼ਿੰਗ 올ਡ ਟੀਕਾਸ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਇਹ ਰੈਫਰਡ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਲਾਈਕ ਸਾਡੇ ਜੋ ਕਰਮ ਨੇ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਪ੍ਰੀ ਆਰਡਰਡ ਕਿ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਪੂਰਬਲੇ ਕਰਮ ਤੋਂ ਲਿਖੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਪਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨਿਰਗੁਣਿਆਰੇ ਦਾ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਸ ਆਪਣੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਕਰਮ ਲਿਖੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਬਟ ਅਗਰ ਬੰਦਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਪੂਰਬਲੇ ਕਰਮ ਬਦਲ ਵੀ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨੀ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਉਹ ਲਿਖੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਕਰਮ ਬਦਲ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਵੱਲ ਜੋੜ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਬਾਣੀ ਕੋ ਯਾਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਐਵੇਂ ਦੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ ਹੈ ਅਗਰ ਬੰਦਾ ਉਦਮ ਕਰੇ ਕਿ ਨਿਰਗੁਣਿਆਰੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਗਰ ਉਹ ਬੰਦਾ ਉਦਮ ਕਰੇ ਤਾਂ ਸੋ I know we have a very respected panel ਅਗਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਣੀ ਯਾਦ ਹੈਗੀ ਤਾਂ definitely
let me reframe what I think you are saying in English. I think what you're saying here is Purable Karam means actions and deeds done in the past, and Pichle Karam, again, past deeds. And usually when we refer to past actions and deeds, we extend this out sometimes to even previous births. It's quite common practice, right? What you're saying is that even my past deeds can be rectified if I make the effort. I think you're raising an extremely interesting point, and I think we should dwell on this a little bit. Purable Karam da matlab ki hai? What do we really mean when we say Purable or Pichle Karam? And how do we actually erase them? How do we erase these Karam? Uncle Ji, do you want to take this for starters, and then I'll go to the others?
It's a very controversial topic. And I think our big problem is because of our Hindu heritage, and even Dr. Sahib Singh talks about Pichle Janma de Karam. Purble Karam he translates as Pichle Janma de Kite Karam, what we've done in our previous lives. And I personally don't subscribe to that, because Purble literally means beforehand. It does not necessarily have anything to do with the karma theory as Hindus believe, because the Hindu belief of karma theory is sort of inexorable. There's no room for meher in that. If you do good deeds according to Manu, if you are a scheduled caste this Janam, you will be Brahman next time, and the other way around. But then with us, it's not that. My understanding is Purv Likhe simply means preordained by God for us. Like when God sends me into this world, He sort of assigned me some things that I will do during this life. Some action, some thinking, some thoughts, whatever. And then we look for meher. And then the question of Uddam and Meher comes in. Uddam, Guru Sahib tells us, Paramatma himself gets us to do the Uddam. And what's the Uddam? Go to Guru. Have Guru Sangat, we do Guru Sangat. Like in Rag Gaudi, the fifth Guru tells us, Sun sakhiye mil udam kare ha, manai le har kante. And what we are trying to do is, we are trying to please God, and the Guru Sahib used that language, but meher will come and it will come. But we create an attitude in ourselves of surrender. And say, man tyag kar bhagat thagori. Moh hai sadhu mante. And we should give up home and do bhakti, think of Guru Sahib and think of God and all the blessings that He's given us, including this human life, as an opportunity to understand Him. And with that attitude, we then get meher. And it's only through, like we are on the Gurbani learning zone, there's discussion going on. Nadri karm lagaye par. And that's where Paramatma will, in His great mercy, take us across and remove our Gyanta and remove that veil between us and Him.
Thank you, Uncle. Appreciate that. Before I reach out to somebody else, a thought occurred to me, which I just want to share with the others. So just as we are referring to Purble as beforehand, may I suggest that it may not mean previous lives. It could mean the formation of habits through continuous repetition. You are actually creating your actions. We sort of repeat our actions on a repeated basis. That's how I see this. So that's one thing I want to throw out there. And the fact is that you can actually change the course of things by changing your habits. And Uncle referred to the fact that our karams are preordained. May I suggest that perhaps what is preordained is the particular qualities or talents that we are born with, or the inclinations that we are born with, that lead us to do certain actions, and there is some free will in there to change that. We are very close to our time. We have about 7 minutes. This is a conversation that needs to go on. Let me reach out to Bani Kaur. I see her appear on my screen. Perhaps she has something to say. Bani ji?
Hello?
Anji, are you trying to say something? Okay. Gurdeep Ji, Amritsar. Have I lost people here?
No, we are here.
Acha. Ekankar Kaur ji.
Hello.
Hanji, Hanji.
Hanji. What question has been raised about Punarjanam? Whether now the
Purble Karam.
Purble Karam actually is an associated thing. If Sikhism believes in Punarjanam, then Purble Karam automatically is understood. Then there should not be any doubt that there will be actions in the previous birth also, and the result of that has become the nature of the soul. And then there should be no doubt about the Purble Karam. There should be no difficulty in translating it as actions done in the previous birth. But my question is now whether Gurbani believes in the previous birth or not.
Now, I get the question. Let's table that question for now. Let's just try to finish off this thread of thought, and it is related to what you're saying, but I think in the interest of time. So we want to just address Harvinder Singh's question, which was phrased a little while ago. But thanks for bringing that up. That's a topic for another day. Charan Singh Virji, do you want to say something?
I agree with the Ranveer Singh Uncle Ji that Sikhi has no room for previous birth. It is now and now only. If we could improve upon, and the Pankti which probably Harvinder Viji was looking, Kya Hans Kya Bagla Jako Nadar Kare, Jyotis Pave Nanka Kago Hans Kare. The only one decision, the only one point which we have to make sure is we become Guru word. Gurmukhe agar asi Guru age smarpan kar denne, everything is taken care of. All these things are only when we are in discussion mode. And when we are in the discussion mode, the one is switched over to the 99 part. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ji. Ekankar Kaur Ji, your perspective?
Well, my perspective is a little bit different. I do actually hold that, you know, there are multiple births, but I don't. For me, Karam is this idea of what we left incomplete, you know, so that when we act in life in every moment, we have a choice to come from our authentic self, the Sat Nam, the authentic being, or we come from the false self, the ego, the mind, the desires. And when we are not authentic, it leaves an imbalance in the universe. And that we do take birth in order to balance out, to have the chance to make the right choice again, to have the chance to come from the authentic self again. And so these ideas that we bring things that are written from the previous lifetime, it's not, well, I did good acts and I got a good rebirth. It's that somewhere I could not complete my own identity, and I'm here to try again to learn under whatever circumstance it is that I've got to be true to myself and I've got to act from that place. And that's how I look at that notion.
Thank you. Dilpreet Singh ji?
Anjiviji, in short, the way I think Dr. Jaswant Singh said that the 70% of our characteristics or some characteristics are genetic, I think that is how I take that what is our previous life is our parents, and what they did, because of that we got some genetic characteristics, and our next birth will be our children, and we will pass those genetic characteristics, and then they will have their own flexibility to lead the life. But other than that, I don't think we are accountable for anything else.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we have about 2 minutes left. And so if anyone has a quick comment to make, the forum is open.
I actually think.
Hanji, Bani Kaurji, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, so I think actually, Harvinderji, I think the seventh worry actually answers your question in one way. The way I look at it is that Guruji is basically making two different points here. One, if in the beginning he said Jeju Chare Arja, he says, you know, if you, you know, had 9 lives or were 9 continents and had so many lives and had so much fame, what's the point if Guruji doesn't bless you with his grace, right? And then Guruji makes another second point that even if you're unworthy, yada, 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 if you don't have his grace, what's the whole point? So if it kind of goes back to your question about, you know, if we can go basically back in, if we were doing bad things and then we did good things, you know, we can rectify, right? Or, you know, I think what Guruji is basically trying to say is that no matter what, you can go rectify. If you don't have his grace, it really doesn't matter in any way. Like whether, you know, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It makes eminent sense.
Yeah. So Ravinder Singh ji, I think what actually I was trying to imply, and then Bani clarified that too, that when we say Nanak Nirgun Gun Kare, what I was trying to say, what Dilpreet Viji said, that the man have to make some effort. That even they have the bad genetics or something or whatever, if they make Uddham, they do like one step, like Charan Singh Ji Viji said, then us bande te bhi Vaheguru nazar kar denda hai. But at least the person had to take one step.
Yes. And I think before we close, I think Uncle Ranbir Singh was trying to say something. Uncle ji, tusi kuch kehna hai?
I think someone else already explained that we make a distinction between having previous births, and that's Guru Sahib tells us, you know, Janam Maran word is used again and again, and there is reference to previous births. But then the second question is, do our actions and rewards continue like in the Hindu philosophy? So I think the two issues are separate.
Yes, indeed.
The rebirth is one thing, and there being an account of deeds and rewards, you know, that's a separate thing.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Ji. Appreciate your insight. We are just about running out of time. Actually, we are over our allotted span of time. I would like to draw this discussion to a conclusion here. I'm going to reach out to Harvinder Singh Ji. So where do we go next week? Do we start the 8th Pauri or do we pick up from where we have left? Because I think there's lots of unanswered questions here. Should we try and frame some of these questions for the Sangat before we meet, or should we proceed on? What does the panel think?
Yeah, I think most of our questions will be answered when we move forward in Japji
Okay.
Sahib. In
Very well.
every body will clarify some of our doubts itself.
Okay. Very well. Okay, in that case, next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will start a discussion on the 8th Pauri, Sonia. And you know, it's a series of 4. We will start with the 8th Pauri and go from there. And thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. It's been a marvelous discussion. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki
Waheguru
Fateh.
Ji ki Fateh.
Fateh.